On the night of March the 22nd, 2026, Air Canada Express Flight 8646 was making its final approach into New York's LaGuardia Airport after a delayed departure from Montreal, descending through light rain towards a wet runway in what should have been a routine landing. Inside the cockpit, everything appeared normal as the plane dropped lower over the lights of the airport, with passengers preparing for arrival after a short, uneventful flight. As the aircraft continued its approach, something was already starting to go wrong elsewhere on the airfield. Decisions were being made quickly, and in those final moments, they didn't line up. What followed was a disaster that unfolded in seconds. So what exactly happened that day? Well, let's talk about it. This is the story of Air Canada Express Flight 8646. Air Canada Express Flight 8646 was a regularly scheduled international service operating between Montreal Trudeau International Airport and New York's LaGuardia Airport, a short route typically lasting around an hour and a half. On the night of the 22nd, 2026, the flight was being operated by Jazz Aviation on behalf of Air Canada, using a Bombardier CRJ-900 regional jet, designed to carry just under 80 passengers on short to medium haul flights. On board were 76 people, including 72 passengers and 4 crew members. In the cockpit were Captain Antoine Forrest, aged 30, and First Officer Mackenzie Gunther, aged 24, both who were relatively early into their careers, with Forrest having been promoted to captain just a few months earlier. This was in late 2025 after building over 3,500 hours of total flight experience. Gunther, meanwhile, had joined the airline less than 2 years prior and had accumulated just over 700 hours. The two had flown together before, but only on a number of small occasions. The aircraft itself, registered C-GNJZ, had been in service for around 20 years and was powered by 2 General Electric turbo engines. There were no indications of any technical issues prior to the flight, and all systems were functionally normal as the aircraft made its way towards New York. Conditions at LaGuardia that night were not severe, but they were far from ideal. Light rain had been falling across the area, leaving the runway wet, whilst visibility fluctuated between 4 and 7 miles. The airport remained fully operational, but like many major airports late in the evening, traffic had begun to compress following earlier delays, leading to higher than usual volume of arrival within a short window of time. Inside the control tower, 2 air traffic controllers were on duty, both experienced, each managing multiple responsibilities as part of a reduced overnight staffing level. At the same time, ground operations across the airport were becoming more complex, as an unrelated issue involving another aircraft was beginning to develop elsewhere on the airfield. At this stage, nothing about Flight 8646 stood out as unusual. The aircraft was on approach, the crew were preparing for landing, and from the perspective of those on board, it was simply another routine arrival into one of the busiest airports in the United States. Whilst Flight 8646 was descending towards LaGuardia, a separate situation was already unfolding on the ground, one that quietly began to complicate operations across the airport. At around 11:18 p.m, a United Airlines Boeing 737 preparing for departure experienced an issue during takeoff. The crew aborted the takeoff not once, but twice, after receiving an anti-ice warning indication. Shortly after, a strong and unusual smell was reported inside the cabin, severe enough that flight attendants began to feel unwell. With no gate immediately available to return to, the crew declared an emergency. In response, airport rescue and firefighting units were dispatched to assist the aircraft where it had stopped on the airfield. Within minutes, a convoy of emergency vehicles began mobilizing from the airport's fire station. This included multiple firefighting trucks, a stair vehicle, a tool truck, and a police unit, all moving towards the location of the United aircraft near Terminal B. By 11:35 p.m, as Flight 8646 continued its approach from Montreal, the emergency response was already in motion. The vehicles gathered near the intersection of taxiways, preparing to move as a group towards their destination. Their intended route required them to cross runway 4, the same runway that had just been assigned to the incoming Air Canada flight. Communications with the control tower began almost immediately, but not without issue. The lead vehicle initially attempted to contact air traffic control, only for the transmission to be partially blocked by overlapping radio traffic. In a busy environment where multiple planes and ground units were operating on the same frequency, moments like this were not uncommon, but they introduced delays and uncertainty at a critical time. As the convoy reorganised, another vehicle, identified as Truck 1, moved into the lead position and took over communications with the tower. Inside the control tower, the situation had become increasingly complex. Controllers were not only managing arriving and departing planes, but also coordinating the emergency response on the ground. Everything was still functioning within the system, but the margin for error was narrowing. The runway ahead was active, the aircraft was committed to landing, and the emergency vehicles were now awaiting for permission to cross directly into its path. As the plane reached the runway, the landing itself began normally. The aircraft crossed the threshold of runway 4, and the pilots began the landing roll. Control was handed to the captain, and almost immediately the aircraft began to slow, with braking applied and the thrust reversers deployed on the wet surface. At the same time, Truck 1 had just been cleared to cross the runway. When the clearance was given, the aircraft was already extremely close, just seconds from landing. The truck began moving forward, heading towards the runway as the aircraft continued down it at speed. Inside the control tower, the conflict became clear almost immediately. At 11:37 PM, the control transmitted a warning over the radio calling out, "Stop, stop, stop." The message went out across the frequency, but it wasn't directed at anyone specifically. Inside the truck, the crew heard it, but in a busy environment with multiple transmissions, they didn't immediately realise it was for them. The truck kept moving. A second call followed moments later, this time clearly directed at them. It said, "Truck 1, stop, stop, stop." By then, the situation had already developed too far. The aircraft was on the runway, slowing but still travelling at a high speed, and the truck was now crossing directly into its path. The aircraft struck the right side of the fire truck at speed, tearing through the front section of the jet as it continued forward along the runway. The impact was violent. The nose of the aircraft was crushed and partially torn apart, with the cockpit taking the full force of the collision, whilst the fire truck was hit hard enough to be thrown onto its side. Inside the cabin, passengers described a sudden explosive bang, followed by chaos as the force of the impact threw people forwards in their seats. Some struck the seats in front of them, others were jolted sideways, as debris and fragments from the forward section of the aircraft were scattered across the runway. In the cockpit, the damage was catastrophic. The forward section of the aircraft was destroyed, killing both Captain Antoine Forrest and First Officer Mackenzie Gunther instantly. Behind them, the cabin remained largely intact, but the force of the collision had already caused serious injuries among passengers and crew. One flight attendant, seated just behind the cockpit, was violently ejected from the aircraft, still trapped into her seat, landing more than 100 meters away from the wreckage. Despite suffering multiple severe injuries, including fractures to her legs and spine, she survived, and it was classed as a miracle. As the aircraft came to a stop, tilted and heavily damaged, the fire truck lay overturned nearby. Its water tank ruptured and contents spilled across the ground. The collision had only lasted seconds, but the damage was already done. In the seconds after the aircraft came to a stop, those inside the cabin were left trying to understand what had just happened. Despite the impact, many of the passengers were still conscious and able to move. With no clear instructions coming from the cockpit, passengers began to act on their own, opening the overwing exits and helping each other onto the runway. Others remained inside briefly, assisting those who were injured before emergency crews reached the aircraft. Airport rescue teams, already on the airfield for the earlier emergency, quickly redirected to the crash site. Within minutes, firefighters and emergency personnel were surrounding the aircraft, helping passengers down from the wings and guiding them away from the wreckage. In total, dozens of people were taken to hospital, several with serious injuries, though many were able to walk away. As the immediate response had come to an end, attention quickly turned to how the collision had been allowed to happen in the first place. The National Transportation Safety Board launched an investigation, and within weeks, a preliminary report was released. Whilst not a final conclusion, it outlined several key factors that had contributed to the accident. One of the most significant findings was the timing of the clearance given to the fire truck. The instruction to cross the runway was issued when the aircraft was already extremely close to landing, leaving almost no margin for error. Once the truck had begun moving, there was very little time to react. The report also highlighted a breakdown in the communication itself. The initial warning to stop was broadcast over the radio without clearly identifying who it was meant for.
Stop, truck 1, stop. Stop, truck 1, stop. Stop, truck 1, stop. Del 2603, go around, runway heading 2000.
Another key issue involved the airport's surface monitoring system, which is designed to track aircraft and vehicles on the ground and alert controllers to potential conflicts. On the night of the crash, that system failed to generate any warning. Investigators found that the emergency vehicles involved were not equipped with that type of transmitter needed for the system to accurately track them. The system struggled to determine their exact positions and did not recognize that one of them was moving into the path of the landing aircraft. There was then also the question of the runway warning lights, which are designed to alert vehicles when it is not safe to enter a runway. These lights had been activated as the aircraft approached, but by design, they switched off just seconds before the aircraft reached the crossing point. That meant that at the exact moment the truck reached the runway, the visual warning had already disappeared. Finally, investigators looked at the workload inside the control tower. As I stated before, at the time of the incident, controllers were managing both normal flight operations and the separate emergency involving the United Airlines aircraft. This meant that one controller was handling multiple responsibilities at once, increasing the complexity of an already busy situation. Individually, none of these factors guaranteed a collision, but together, they created a dangerous situation where a single mistake was no longer recoverable. In the hours following the crash, LaGuardia Airport was brought to a standstill. All operations were suspended as emergency crews secured the scene and investigators began documenting what had happened. But as the scene was being cleared, the full weight of the accident was becoming clear. The most important part of any of my videos is the victims, so I'm going to use this section to talk about them a bit more. Captain Antoine Forrest had been flying since he was just 16 years old, starting out on bush planes in remote parts of Canada before gradually working his way into commercial aviation. Family members later described how he was always flying, always training, always working towards the next step. Even as a child, he had been completely focused on becoming a pilot, going as far as moving away during school to improve his English because he believed it would help him reach that goal. Outside of flying, he spent much of his time outdoors, hiking and travelling. First Officer Gunther, who was at the beginning of his career, had followed a more direct path into aviation, completing his training at Seneca Polytechnic before moving straight into a professional role. Those who knew him described him as someone who had only just started building his future within the industry, with everything still ahead of him. In the days after the crash, flags were lowered at the college where he trained, and messages from instructors and classmates spoke to how quickly he made an impression. It also came to light that the outcome could have been far worse. Multiple passengers later described the aircraft slowing sharply just after landing before the collision. One said, "I felt the pilot saved our lives. They're the reason I was able to make it home." Others described both men as heroes, believing that whatever actions were taken in those final seconds reduced the severity of the crash. The two officers inside the fire truck, who had been responding to the earlier emergency, were also seriously injured. Both were taken to hospital following the collision, one later released, whilst the other remained under medical care. Like everyone involved, they'd just been carrying out their roles in a fast-moving situation that had escalated beyond their control. Following the crash, tributes began to appear. At Montreal's airport, a memorial was created for Forrest and Gunther, describing them as two young men who had lost their lives whilst performing their duties and pursuing something they had worked towards for years. For those who survived, the memory of the crash will stay with them, but for the families of the two pilots, it was a loss that couldn't be undone. What began as a normal routine landing escalated to a disaster in seconds. However, in those final moments, the actions taken in the cockpit may have been the reason that so many others made it out alive. May they rest in peace. As always, this is not an AI channel, I do everything myself, so if you appreciate my work, subscribe, and if you want to go that extra step to support the channel, maybe consider becoming a member. Let me know what you thought about this case in the comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.